rise up to know. On your heels are the days of woe.
Shalom and welcome to the Remnant Radio Hour, where we're living and learning a restoration lifestyle.
On your heels are the days of woe.
Sorry about that. I don't know how that overplayed. Shalom and welcome to the Remnant Radio Hour, where we're living and learning a restoration lifestyle.
Nitza, you've got a browser or something open.
Sorry about that. I don't know how that overplayed. Shalom and welcome to the Remnant Radio
You
Hour.
must have a browser open.
That's the chat room. That's what I was
Really?
afraid of. Yeah, that was
I
my
am
chat
so
room open
sorry. I
in another
apologize.
screen. Okay, we'll start over. Well, no, we're on. Sorry about that. This is a Remnant Radio Show. We're living and learning a restoration lifestyle with technical difficulties, but at least they were running. They're just running double instead of not running at all. So today we are on episode 3 of the Aleph-Tav Remedy. And last week we covered linen. So let's just do a little bit of housework here. Let me share my screen for those of you who have the book. And for those who need or want the book, we'll go into a few things here. So let's do this. Okay, so first of all, what we're doing is we're going through, oh, sorry, it's not, doesn't seem to be going through the book, the share screen again. Well, let's start over. This is really weird. Share screen. We'll go again. Well, it's not sharing screen. I don't know what the deal is there. Okay, so now we go. There we go. So if you want the book, the Aleph-Tav book, which is we're going to be going through, and we're going to be getting into the details of the Ancient Hebrew and the Aleph-Tav body points. But first, there's a lot of information that we need to cover, so we got the groundwork covered before we start going in and looking at the body systems and the organs and where to put the essential oils and different things we can do with the Aleph-Tav body system. In episode 1, we kind of did a teaser with the laying on of hands and how we can use the electrical energy in our bodies with the positive, negative, stop bleeding. We did a little bit of an introduction to the Ancient Hebrew and where to get those resources. You can get me at Facebook under Nitza Moshe. You can go to remnantremedy.com, which is our main website. And from there, we have Remnant Radio archives, which are mostly Messianic Glam, because we covered linen last week, and we're going to cover linen this week as far as it goes with frequencies and energy and the whole concept behind that. Under the radio archives, we have a whole section called Sheish or Linen. We have Sheish and Linen Lovers, and we have Rebuilding the Living Stones, which is actually about trying to portray or get across to you that we are actually living stones with electrical energy, etc. And so from remnantremedy.com, we have 3 stores. We have links to our Rumble channel, YouTube channel, but Rumble's usually got more now. And we've gotten the newsletter sign up for, totally different than the 3 websites. We have Pure Shimon, which is essential oils, and where we are carrying the Aleph-Tav book, the Dr. Monzo's Quantum Energy Minerals, which is a full spectrum minerals that not only bind and take pathogens out, like mold and heavy metals, things like that, but it also is nutritious for the body. So listen to the last 2 shows. I think we talked a little bit about that. And more importantly, right now, if you want to join us and go through this and learn this, and it's kind of like a book club, I guess you would say, you would want to go to remnantremedy.com, click on Pure Shimon, and on the very front page, you'll see right here the Aleph-Tav Body System, and that's the book. Now, let's talk about the book just a little bit. And when you do go in there, well, you'll see right next to it, we have, I don't have them all loaded, but I do have them all formulated and available. You just have to contact me until we can get the whole site loaded with all the different frequencies and energies that match the Aleph-Tav body points in the body. But here's the book. So let's talk about the book a little bit. On the blog link from remnantremedy.com, or you can go straight to livingstones.tabernacle.org. You will see that there is a post called the Aleph-Tav Body System book update. Now, for a lot of you, you know, if you've been following, there have been corrections and a new print. So most of you out there probably have the August 2021 first edition print, but there were some changes to some of the pages. And so they put out a correction link, and there was a reprint of the first edition in August 2022, which was just last month. However, because we have so many eagle eyes out there, thank you so very much. Some of you detected that not all of the pages are corrected. The corrections aren't corrected. And so we went back and found there was a problem in the upload to the publisher. So some pages are good, some pages weren't. So here's the deal. They're going through, they're reworking those again. And when that update is done, so that the corrections to the corrections are done, I will click the link here and or tell you in the next show. So go get the Aleph-Tav Body System book update from this link. Also, I have on here, we have the modern day. Let's see if it loads here. My internet's pretty slow. We have the Aleph-Tav Modern Hebrew chart there. You need to go download these probably. And then we have the ancient chart. Okay. And this is really what we're going to be working off of. But I like, if you're like me, when we get through learning the basic pictograph language, it's going to make, I think, the modern language make more sense. And I've got the first Aleph-Tav page in there, but for some reason it's not really want to load. It might in a minute. Just give it time. Anyway, we'll be going through and doing lessons with this. So you're going to want to get a notepad, and you're going to learn how to write those ancient Hebrew letters. You're going to learn what they mean, and you're going to learn how they correspond to the body points on the body, because we literally have a frequency and energy that matches these pictograph energies, etc., on the body. And again, Hebrew is a learning, a verb language. So it's about doing the word, not just reading and listening to the word. So these are things that you need to go to, and we'll get into all of that as we go. This week, we're going to do some more linen, because there was just a lot of linen questions. A lot of people have that question, and we're learning a lot of myths and even I have to unlearn and correct my old material as far as the frequency, energy, and the measurements, because now that we have someone like Dr. Monzo who has done all this testing and can test, then we want to update and clear our information. And then maybe sometime before we get into the details, one of these days I will do part 3 to my newsletter and my basic introduction to linen, which is really about what happens to the body of Messiah when we understand and come into the recognition of linen and prepare ourselves as a bride. And from Genesis to Revelations, it's usually about, without going into detail, it's time for her to be promoted, to rule and reign, and or to be set free. Okay, so it's kind of like a name change, like Israel. So anyway, that is kind of where we're at right there. And we answered some questions that some people had last week on linen. And we are going to talk a little bit about shotness today. So if you have the book, I just want to make sure I covered all of those little things that we need to know. Okay, so last week we did pages at the bottom of 383, where we started talking about the false information regarding the testing of fabrics, and we got through page 385, and then I guess we'll go briefly through page 386 and 387 and 388. Then we're going to go back and we're going to talk about shotness today, okay, with the time that we have. And then next week we are going to go and do chapter 2, not chapter 1, but chapter 2. We're going to go through chapter 2 about what is the language of creation. because this is the basis of everything. And if you watch my show on Wednesdays on the Heart of the Tribe, you'll also get that. But this show is going to be about frequency energy tied to the Aleph-Tav, but predominantly we're going through Dr. Monzo's book, the Aleph-Tav Body System. And this is going to be powerful for the body, or the bride, I should say, to understand and get ready for the days that are coming. And so let's go to page 386. And again, for those of you who don't know or new, we're on this great big book here. It's over 400 pages. You can go to remnantremedy.com, click on Pure Shimon. It's right on the front page, and you can order it. Just an FYI, I have about 5 books from August 2021 printing left. They're $6 off. Oh, and I wanted to read a message. I think I still have the message here from Dr. Monzo. Just had it here a second ago. Sorry, there's just so much paperwork here. Well, anyway, basically what he said in his notes on those changes is that the body isn't going to go against itself. So if you make a mistake, like if there's a difference in the page between a left and a right, he says not to freak out about it. And some of it was just the letters. The letters were written wrong, the wrong letter. So we will get those corrections, okay? Okay, so we're going to go back and we're going to continue on some of these myths. Number 6, page 386, okay? Wearing black clothing will block out light and negatively affect your energy system due to having a frequency of 0. Now remember, we're going through the myths of what is copied and out there on the internet, and you really have to go listen to episode 2 if you want the background on some of that. So this is kind of like in a question answer response, okay? So wearing black linen, this is what is, out there, will block the light and negatively affect your energy systems, because it supposedly has the frequency of 0. And we went in last week about how that's really not defined well. So we defined that last week. So the answer to this, he says, is no, it is not true. Light can travel through black clothes. Our eyes interpret colors based on the frequency that is reflected when light hits them. If black had no frequency, or the frequency of 0, we would not be able to see it. The human eye can detect light from 380 nanometers to 800 nanometers wavelength. That's how that is measured in nanometers, okay? Which would be somewhere between 400 terahertz and 800 terahertz. Black is not a color, it is a shade. In physics, we call something black when it does not reflect any of the incident light. However, all black bodies radiate. The frequency of that radiation, the black body spectrum, is a function of the temperature of the object and reflects Planck's, P-L-A-N-C-K, law, Planck's law. So you can go look that up. And there is a formula on the page. You'll have to read that on page 386. Plotting this for a well-known black body, the sun, you get the following normalized. And then there's a chart. You're into the scientific stuff. You can read and look at that. We recognize it as white, but really it is black. Even white objects only appear white when we illuminate them with white light. If you shine red light on a white object, the object doesn't change color, but you perceive it as red. So there are 4 things going on here. Number 1, when you look at an object, what you see is the interplay between the color of the incident light and the surface reflectivity. Number 2, black means does not reflect light. So if something is black, it does not reflect light. And I think that, I think many of us, although some might not these days because we don't get like that basic education, but if you have a black car, It doesn't reflect the sun. If you wear black clothes, they may be hotter because they don't reflect the sun. Okay, so black can be hotter. Number 3, black bodies have a color corresponding to their temperature. Colder equals redder, more red. Thus, black does not have a frequency and a wavelength. Lastly, black colored clothes do not affect your energy negatively or close your energy systems. This is just more New Age nonsense. Remember, all color was made by Yahweh, including black. Hasatan did not create anything. Now, I don't know if it's in the book yet, but we may want to talk about emotionally, physically, how we resonate with different colors, how different colors, wearing different colors makes us feel. I know, especially for women, a lot of women wear black because they think it makes them look thinner. A lot of men who speak wear black because they think, it's more becoming. And then some people might do it because, well, there's a lot of reasons, but one of them might be just don't want to really draw a lot of attention to you. So a lot of times you'll see black uniforms, right? In different places where people work. And it's, doesn't show as much dirt, I guess, overall as white would, correct? So, all right, on page 387, Dr. Monzo tested some fabrics. Now that we've covered all the fabric information concerning mixed and mingled fabrics, I will share my testing and its results. Let me first start by listing what my testing has proven and state the fact that all of it lines up perfectly with Yahweh's instructions. Any type of mixed or mingled thread in one garment is bad for the Aleph-Tav Body System. The percentage of mixture makes no difference. Therefore, if something is 99.9%, is just as bad as a 50-50 mixture. And we talked a little bit about that last week. We're going to talk a little bit. I think we have time to go into shotness today. Any type of synthetic threads in a garment, whether 100% or mixed, is bad for the Aleph-Tav Body System. In other words, that is the energy in your body, okay? And remember last week, I basically, that's what I said. It's not so much about the frequency, et cetera. It's about providing that environment for your body to be able to be static free for the electrical energy that Yahweh put in us and the light, the aura, biophoton field, to be able to move and move freely without becoming static. 2 different types of garments do not cause a problem with the Aleph-Tav Body System. And remember, we talked about linen and maybe wearing wool over the top. It was about looping the thread that was the problem. And that the pattern for us is in the Mishkan. Okay? And we talked about that last week. Different colored garments have different effects, but do not cause a problem with the Aleph-Tav Body System. So he is addressing that color there. Mixed metals on the body is bad for the Aleph-Tav Body System. There are some garments that are made with metal threads, right? Or they have, well, I won't even get into the nano things that they are doing to clothing. Maybe he'll address that for us one day. Any type of metal inside the body is bad for the Aleph-Tav Body System. That's why heavy metals, etc., block the detoxification for the body. And why we, Dr. Monzo works on detoxing people, and we have detox products. And, it used to be you could do a detox once or twice a year to maintain your health, or when you really got ill, you needed to do that. But because we are bombarded so much every day, from the air we breathe to the water to the food, it's an ongoing process. My testing was based on 3 types of devices. Okay, I want to make sure I keep track of time. Oh, number 1, the biomeridian testing. Testing via acupuncture points along with fabric. Number 2, Quest 4, biofeedback. Testing the whole body and the A.B.B.A, Aleph-Tav body, command centers along with fabric. And that's what we'll be going into detail when we start getting to that part of the book. This is the most accurate testing device on the market currently. It can test via energetic signature with biofeedback. And again, last week we talked about what that signature was and how everything had a signature of energy. I can test percentage of coherence of each command center as well as percentage of the congestion of that energy. Number 3, experimental life energy meter by Helionosis, and that's HELIOGNOSIS. It is a unique device based on the Orgon or scalar energy field, often known as life energy, zero-point energy, etc. I was actually in a class with this a few years ago. Very interesting. In physics, this field was first discovered and proven by Tesla. However, no set unit of measurement has ever been set and never will be, while corrupt and greedy men are in charge. This is the same type of energy Tesla wanted to use and provide free to the people. Clean energy to the world. And, if you study that, I think I want to say it was Westinghouse that won out. But if you get into what people call conspiracy theory, or the kings of the earth who rule it, they're the ones who have ruled the energy for cars and energy for us in our homes. And, if you stop and think and pray about it, our whole lifestyle has changed and unnatural in a sense, because we're not living an agrarian lifestyle with the sun going up and going down, and we have artificial light. That changes a lot of things that we do in our lives, even when it comes to the arguments about Shabbat, right? Won't go there, but we got artificial light. It changes everything. Just stop and think about everything that you have that runs off of artificial electricity or light. How much money you spend on it. Look at your computer, look at your phone, look at your television, look at your toaster, things like that. There's a lot of money that goes into supporting that electricity, and then who provides that versus being able to provide it for free. Back in the 1900s, Nikola Tesla discovered an electromagnetic longitudinal wave, which is now a scalar wave. Scalar waves are created by a pair of identical waves that are 180 degrees out of phase with one another. They can carry out lossless transmission of energy and do not decay over time or distance. Also, scalar waves can convey information, including information from a healing substance. Additionally, scalar waves can also pass through the metal objects with no loss of power, transport energy without the need of wires, and travel faster than the speed of light. The speed of light. And Yeshua and Torah is light, right? So it is life and light, but he said light. I have found this meter to be incredible and extremely subtle. For example, I measure the difference between heirloom seed corn versus GMO seed corn at the same weight. GMO corn had a 100% decrease in energy compared to the heirloom seed corn. I measured seeds, chips, and kernels, all with the same results. Page 388. I used all three of these testing devices on many people with many types of mixed fabrics. Below are some of the results based on the fabric type first listed in the body's energy life field or scalar energy. After that, it is the percentage of coherence at the LFMs, which is the light frequency manifestations, or I call them body points, which has the matching essential oil blends to that at 24 hours, 48 hours, and then 7 hours of wearing only that type of fabric. Okay, so he tested at those intervals. Okay, and this is on page 388. And then he has these big charts. Basically, what happens when you wear silk, cotton, wood, linen, acrylic, nylon, polyester, leather, wool, linen, which is a mixture, cotton, polyester, which is a mixture, etc., metallic. Okay, so basically, when you look at the chart, and there's several areas where he tested the body's energy field. Remember, our countenance, our energy, our aura, our biophoton field. He tested them with those different clothes. So again, it's about being able to let the energy, the light, the power that Yahweh has put in us. So on a practical means, if we're wanting to do something and have energy, then we need an environment that we've provided with our clothing. And if that power and energy is going to move it in and through us, just like being able to let, the plumbing open for circulation, right? Because life is in the blood. The oxygen has to get to the cells. Well, so does light, So he basically, if you sit here and you look at, you use 100% silk, cotton, wool, or linen, the body's energy improved. If you wore acrylic, nylon, or polyester, it lowered. If you wore leather, it improved. If you wore mixtures of wool, linen, cotton, poly, metallic blends, etc., or even a mixture of 99%, say, wool and 1% something else, right? Especially, I wouldn't say cotton per se, but I don't see cotton linen on here. So I'm not sure about that. But so if you had 99% linen and you put polyester thread in it, right, then your body energy would still go down. And then if you wore linen and wool in layers, like in the Mishkan, because the linen was down around the Holy of Holies and the curtains between the inner court and the Holy of Holies, and then the lambskins were the pattern over the top. Remember, that power and that energy was in the place of the Holy of Holies. Okay, that, when they talk about the presence of Elohim, and it was connected to that ark, some people say it was a transformer, some people say it's a generator. Years ago, I had detailed information on it from a NASA scientist, but I lost it in the process. I probably couldn't understand it, but maybe today I could, but it's amazing. So, and this is why the Kohen had to be barefooted. They had to be grounded. They had to have special rules in handling that Ark of the Covenant, because the presence and the power and the energy was with Yahweh. So, and the people knew that. The people in the surrounding nations, they knew that. Okay. So, so then he goes on there and he tests them in different hours. And basically, you'll see there's, as long as it's pure and natural, then, and not man-made, and we, a lot of things besides the chemicals that are in, say, acrylic, nylon, polyester, you might want to look at, why did that kind of clothing become so popular? Why is it so hard today to get 100% linen? Why is it so hard today to get 100% cotton or wool? And then if you can, why is it so expensive? Because it's not mass produced, and it's controlled basically by certain powers. Because all these other things, including our plastics, and if you're older, you know this. We used to have glass, stainless steel, right? We had linen, we had cotton, we had wool, we had leather, we had leather shoes. We didn't have this artificial stuff. Well, a lot of those are byproducts of petroleum. Okay, so if you wear silk, wool, or leather, it increases the body's field, our energy field, by 500. If we have cotton, it increases our field by 1100. If we have linen, it's increased by 1500. If we have a mixture, it decreases by 500. If we have polyester, it decreases by 900. If we have acrylic, nylon, linsey, woolsey, or mixture, decreases by 1100. If we have metallic, it decreases. So again, this is the reason. It's not about, we talked about the fallacy of the frequency. It's about being able to allow your body, it's a biophoton energy field, to function and let the light and the energy move the way it should. And then he also has on here what happens after 7 days, right? So it talks about how it goes up, how it goes down. It's interesting. If you had cotton, wool, leather, and are layered, it increases by 1%. And if you have linen, it's 2%. But if you wear silk, it's the same, right? Now, one thing we need to consider about silk, and it would be interesting to know, I understand that the way they do some of the silk and out of China is not really good or healthy because of the way they go about it. And so that's the same with some of the linen. A lot of linen out of China, which is the less expensive linen you can get here in the U.S. Sometimes it goes and gets shipped through Europe, then stamped as a European product, and then you're paying more money for the linen because you think it's a European linen, which is usually a very much better, higher quality by the time it gets to the U.S. In summary, the healthy fabrics materials to wear are as follows. 100% organic natural fibers in one garment is the best. Number 2, avoid all mixed or mingled garments and threads in the garment. And this goes back to the garden. This goes back to the current situation in the world. It's a mixing of unlike kind. It's the mixing. It's the original, in a sense, it's the original sin, right? The tree of the knowledge of good and evil was a mixture. Doesn't matter how much good it is. You know, if you have a clear glass of water and you put, 8 ounces of water in it, and you put 1 drop of ink, black ink, it's not pure anymore, right? It's mixed. Okay. So if you need a visual, get a visual. Avoid all synthetic materials and garments. Layering of different types of garments is fine as long as they're 100% thread from natural fibers. It is best to not wear metal on the body due to the fact that almost all metals are mixed alloys. Do not put metal in the body. Okay. All right. So let's see. We got time. Maybe we can finish this whole section on linen and go into the shotness. And they'll be done with that section. And then we'll come back next week. And we're going to start. If you want to maybe have some conversation, I don't know if that's going to be, in the chat room here, and or have questions, I read chapter 2. If you have the book, read chapter 2. Okay. All right. Back to page 381. This is in the appendix A. It's about the materials on the body and the whole principle of no mingled seed. The Bible is clear that we are instructed to not mix or mingle seed, that is our DNA, of plants, animals, and materials. This is one of the primary issues with the pointy things out there. Okay. GMOs are not biblical, genetically modified organisms, and neither are many other items used today. This appendix will focus on what we wear on the body. 2 Bible passages speak about, this is appendix A, mixed and mingled threads used to make garments, instructing us not to use different material threads to make a garment. This topic has become very confused because of the lack of proper biblical interpretation and the lack of understanding of Torah. Torah is the first 5 books, the foundation of the scriptures, from Genesis to Revelation. And Wendy, those are good questions. Colloidal means, one of the things is can be absorbed. Our body is made from minerals. But they have to be absorbable. They have to be organic, which is why Dr. Monzo puts out the quantum energy minerals, the full spectrum. A lot of minerals out there are only binding, as in they take things out, but they're not giving us nutrition. That's, one of the things I think it includes is boron, which is needed, especially if you're having problems metabolizing inorganic calcium. A lot of people take calcium tablets. Well, if it's not from a plant, and if it's not from a fulvic or humic mineral, then it's going to absorb into your body. When you eat sugar, when you eat white carbs, is what we call them, pastas, etc., there's calcium in there, but it's like a rock, and it causes, contributes to bone spurs. It contributes to hardening of the arteries, could be kidney stones, etc. So, yes, we do need to clarify that. Now, there was a demonstration that he did on jewelry, and I know when I have been tested, I've always been tested that it's better to not wear the jewelry, because, like he says, most of them have alloys in it. I think if you had 100% gold, as fine gold as you could get, you'd probably be okay. And silver, but that is pretty difficult. So, and I know every time you have a piercing and in a sense, you have a break of communication of the cells. Remember, the number one way our body communicates cell to cell is electrically through the nervous system. And basically, I've never done a deep study on it, but I know that the belly button is considered one of that. So when you get piercings and body tattoos, besides the heavy metals that are in the ink that get into your lymphatic system in your body, you're breaking cellular communication with piercings and tattoos. So that's a deep subject and could, have a lot of research to it. But yes, we don't try to avoid those. And yes, we do have biblical things where they had earrings. I have mixed feelings about it from a biblical perspective. Without getting into that, but overall, especially in our society, piercings and tattoos are a sign of bondage, or a spirit of bondage, or self-mutilation. And I know there may be people that disagree with that, but over my years of study and knowing it from a cellular communication issue with the body. So, just like I have these in, and this is probably not a real good deal. And if you can test me with that metal, or test it because I've got this break of communications with the piercing, then that's not good. I have a scar all the way across here where I fell down on a jar full of grasshoppers when I was young. That's a cut, and then we all know a lot of people, especially women, who have, for whatever reason had been cut during childbirth or episiotomies and C-sections and stuff, we get a lot of scar tissue, right? Sometimes we have to do something drastic to help overcome that scar tissue. But then, of course, we could use things like helichrysum, hatalicum, essential oils to help, frankincense, to start healing that scar tissue. So anyway, and the colloidal silver, I think it has to do with the form of it. Colloidal is absorbable to the body, and I'm pretty sure Dr. Monzo uses it. So, and maybe that's answered somewhere in the book, okay? But we come from minerals, right? We come from the dirt, and we need it. And that's why a lot of people are seeing a lot of healing results with the QEMs, the quantum energy minerals. And he's also put some scalar energy in there. If you go to ATRemedy.org, I believe it is. I have a website there on the terahertz wands. We use that for energy healing. And if you want information, you can go to that. But let's see, I got 20 minutes. I got to get through here. And yes, email me your questions too, and I'll try to do the best I can the following week. This topic has become confused because of the proper interpretation. Okay. I will first explain the biblical principles against mixing and mingling. Second, I will explain the 2 verses on mixed garments from a Paleo-Hebrew understanding. And third, I will cover some false information on testing, which we've covered that. And fourth, I will explain testing. Okay, so we did that part. We're going to go back to the foundation here of the mixture of mingling. Okay, first in Leviticus 19:19. So if you got your Bibles, look at Leviticus 19:19. We are told not to mix or mingle 2 different types of animals together, and we are not to mix or mingle 2 different types of plant seeds together. Obviously, both instructions are prohibiting crossbreeding on a genetic level. This was the original sin in the garden, and what do we have today? We have a mixing and a mingling of seed, animal, human, plant mixed, and we have mixing of technology, AI, etc. So as in the day of Noah, right, as that ever increased, I personally believe what were real dinosaurs were a mixing of animals and fallen angels. So anyway, that's the big principle, and that's the principle that's violated in the worldwide agenda right now. Let's see here. My eyes are watering. I don't know why. Sorry about that. Obviously, both instructions of crossbreeding are on genetic level. We are not to mix them. Okay. So in Genesis 6, some angels wanted to take women as wives and commit great sin, which precipitated the flood. And it was because of the violence. Because when you unnaturally do things out of their function, form, and design, then there are side effects. And those side effects are not good. I would even go so far as to say that has to do with the way we sometimes try to conceive children. Or if you ever want to do some research on snow babies, right? They implanted these seeds and sperms together, and then they froze them. And then I had to hear a radio Christian show talk about how it was our Christian obligation to adopt these, deep frozen embryos to give them life. I don't think so. Yahweh did not instruct us to do that. What kind of side effects do we have from that? What do we know is really inbred within that? Side notes there. During Noah's time, all kinds of genetic mixing was taking place, and Yahweh called it wickedness, the results of which had to be eliminated. Matthew 10:16 is another passage which often gets overlooked. One word in that passage is often mistranslated. I talked about this last year when at Sukkot and Take on the World. You look up Matthew 10:16, right? It's the one that talks about be as innocent as doves, as wise as serpents. Go look up that word innocent. Sometimes it'll say harmless. That word means to be unmixed. Be unmixed. Do not be defiled. There are multiple other passages against the idea of mixing or corrupting genes through mixing practices. It is plainly understood to be against the laws of Yahweh unless you belong to what he calls the pagan modern-day mainstream church that teaches lawlessness, or that we don't have to keep the commandments, which leads towards our own destruction. And so if we don't keep the commandments, then it's very clear what the curses are there in Deuteronomy, especially chapter 6, where he tells us if we keep them, he'll give us life. If we don't, we get curses. So he came that we might have life more abundantly. If Yeshua is the Torah, if Yeshua is the Aleph-Tav, which is the Torah, which is the light, we keep his commandments. If he is Yahweh and Yahweh is him, and then I know a lot of you will go on a tangent on that, but they're all different expressions of the creation and the source of life. Much has been muddled by traditions and bad interpretation. The principle related to garments is the same above with animals, humans, and plants. If a garment or fabric had genes, which they do not, what would they be? In living organisms, genes make up the being of a plant. Threads make up the cloth of a garment, so threads would be parallel to genes. Thread is spun from material and then used to make the garment. Many believers recognize that we are not to mix linen and wool together, and it's frequently said that those are the only two things we cannot mix in a garment. That is incorrect. It does not make sense considering what the scriptures teach elsewhere. That would be like saying only cows and donkeys cannot mix, but you can mix anything else. I intend to show you that the scriptures teach that you cannot mix any two types of material threads to make a garment. And we just covered that with the testing that he did. To clarify, I am speaking of only one garment with a single DNA and not about wearing two different garments or layering as in the Mishkan. Wearing two garments made of different materials is not a mixing or mingling issue. It is simply a layering issue. Again, one must understand the principles of mixing that are prohibited in scripture. Okay, and maybe I'll get through this. Okay, for an example, it is mixing to eat a salad which contains multiple vegetables, is it? No, that is not mixing, but combining biblical foods. The DNA or seed of the vegetables in the salad have not been mixed or mingled. The two passages that cover this topic are Leviticus 19:19 and Deuteronomy 22:11. 22:11 in Deuteronomy is quoted more often, perhaps because it mentions both linen and wool. We recognize the importance of looking at every verse on a topic and not just one. This study will yield something remarkably interesting. First, Leviticus was written before Deuteronomy, so the law first mentioned is applied with Leviticus. The verse in 1919 from the KJV and the CJB, which is the complete Jewish Bible, and the NAS, I think that's New American Standard, is translated differently. In my opinion, the CJB and the NAS are correct. And interesting, when I read the KJV, I get the same understanding. So I guess I haven't pulled it apart in the Hebrew, though. Okay, you shall keep my statutes. Thou shalt not let the cattle gender with the diverse kind. Thou shalt not sow the field with mingled seed, neither shall a garment mingled of linen and woolen come upon you. Now that's the KJV. Now I read it as don't let it be mingled come upon you. And but maybe it reads another way to other people. The Complete Jewish Bible says, observe my regulations. Don't let your livestock mate with those of another kind, and don't sow your field with two different kinds of grain, and don't wear a garment of cloth made with two different kinds of thread. Leviticus 19:19 again in the New American Standard, you are to keep my statutes. You are not to breed together two kinds of your cattle. You shall not sow your field with two kinds of seed, nor wear a garment upon you of two kinds of mixed material together. Okay. Again, a lot of believers out there will have a hard time with that unless you come into Torah and you're trying, and you're just trusting that if he made a commandment, it's for our good. It's for our health. It's for us to live life and life more abundantly, to be healthy. Okay. Strong's number 8162, which I have right here, broken down for you. Shotness. There are a few issues with this word and how it was translated in KJV, King James. Which, by the way, if we got any King James thumpers out there, I'll try not to go on too much of a tangent here. The King James, a lot of people think that was the Bible of the Pilgrims, the Protestants, and that's not true. It was the Geneva Bible. And the King James Bible was commissioned by King James, and a lot of the political power things about obeying Yahweh over man was, whatever you want to call it, portrayed in a sense in scripture and or changed so that the people of the king would obey the king, and they believed in the divine right of king. So if you're at 1st or 2nd Samuel's chapter 8, Yahweh tells Israel what's going to happen when they choose a man king. Okay, and that's really what all that's about. When you watch the movie Braveheart, when you see that, they were trying to hide that wedding because the king had first rights to sleep with the woman. You'll see this in a lot of older movies that portray that period of history because that is what's going on. But a lot of people don't miss that because they don't understand what's going on. But they wanted to spread their seed. So they had the first rights to sleep with that bride. And so that's why a lot of times they would hide their weddings and their marriages. And really, marriage license became a taxing way and a tracking way that was not a biblical covenantal marriage under Yah. So, anyway, let me get back on track here. So we have the shotness, right? Okay, so it's in scripture only twice. It says in Leviticus 19:19 and Deuteronomy chapter 22, verse 11. It means mixed stuff or mixed material. KJV. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me back up. So basically, I want to say about the King James Bible. It was a political document. And a lot of Christians burnt at the stake or suffered or were persecuted because they would not accept that political document and the changes that were made in that. So if you're going to be a King James thumper, make sure you know the history behind it. I don't think there's any Bible that is better than another, especially if it's not in its original language. But any Bible that is read is a good Bible, okay, in that sense. So we have to use some maturity and judgment when we're dealing with that, and know the history behind it. And it made it possible for him to become empowered so that he could divorce or kill his wives off, basically. Okay. All right, back to number 3. So the King James Concordance, like many other, cannot fully be relied on. Most people don't ever know that because they don't study scriptures enough to know that there are some problems with Strong's Concordance. I still think it's one of the best tools around. It's lined up with the scriptures in the King James. It's a great study tool, but I want to always go back now to Hebrew and Ancient Hebrew especially. It states that this word Lindsay Woolsey, really that is laughable, he says. It states that this would mean, he says, look it up in the dictionary etymologically, and you will see that it is the late 1500th word, the late 1500s, and hello, that is not Hebrew. We're talking about a word that was not used until 1400 to 1500 AD. It is not Hebrew. Hebrew was a word for linen and a different word for wool, or it has a different word for linen, shesh, and a different word for wool. And neither of these words appear in the verse in this Leviticus. Furthermore, Yahweh does not allow mixing, so why would there be a Hebrew word for two different materials being mixed in the first place? Deuteronomy 22:11, the Hebrew words for wool and linen are used separately, and so the writer wanted to express the mixing of the linen and the wool in Leviticus. He could have, and presumably would have, used some Hebrew word again if he was actually talking about those materials. Deuteronomy 22:11, the Hebrew 8162, which is the shotness, is used before the Hebrew word 6785, which is wool, and the Hebrew word 6593, which is linen. Therefore, Hebrew word 8162, which is shotness, does not have the same meaning as wool and linen in Deuteronomy chapter 22, verse 11. It would say, you shall not wear wool and linen, and of wool and linen together. In the Septuagint, the Hebrew word 8162, shotness, translated into Greek means different, diverse, or varying kinds, with absolutely no mention of wool or linen. Clearly, Leviticus 19:19 teaches that we are not to mix two different threads or materials together in a garment. And this is the first mention of the topic, according to the first law of mention, rightly defines the principle of the topic. Lastly, it should be noticed that this principle of not mixing the threads comes along with the same principles applied to animals in Leviticus in this context. Secondly, Deuteronomy 22:11, which is the only other passage in Scripture addressing mixed mingled threads. What you will notice is some versions translate the passage in such a way that linen and wool is used as an example, whereas other versions make it sound like do not mix linen and wool only. Thou shalt not wear garment of divers sort as of wool and linen together. That's the KJV. The Complete Jewish Bible says you are not to wear clothing woven with two different kinds of thread, wool and linen together. The New American Standard, you shall not wear a material mixed of wool and linen together. And as you can see, the King James adds the phrase as of. This should be phrase there. I think that's a typo. We need to mark that. In addition, you will find that in the New King James and the W.E.B., which I'm not sure what that version that is, it is hard to tell from the Hebrew. Once you understand Leviticus, you can see why adding this phrase, it says phase, is needed to prevent confusion. The Hebrew word 8162, shotness, is used in this passage again, and it means mixed material. In summary, Leviticus 19:19 and Deuteronomy 22:11 are in perfect harmony that the instruction was given by Yahweh not to mix two different or varying kinds of threads in a garment. Furthermore, when linen and wool are mentioned, they are used only as examples of various kinds of materials to not mix into one garment. There is no mention of layering different types of garments. The focus is both in the passages is the mixing of the thread only in the garment, in one garment, just as we are not to mix two seeds together. Okay, and then he goes into there's a paragraph which we have right here, which is shotness. It's the Shin, Ein, Tet, Nun, Zayin, and that the different ways of looking at that. But one would be like the pressing of the eye, or see, or reflecting of the light, or understanding, perception. Tet is the basket. It can also be the snake in the basket is contained. The Nun here is the seed or sperm, and then this is the plow, the Zayin. So when he suffers it out, he basically gets, besides the mixed stuff in the King King James, he gets destroyed by not understanding or perceiving the authorized seed set apart. Okay, so that will finish this up. If you get a chance, read chapter 2, and we will start next week. What is the language of creation, which is the basis of the Aleph-Tav Body System, and then we'll get into what is the Aleph-Tav Body System. And I will be here next Thursday, but there'll be a replay on the 20, I want to say it's the 22nd. And then I think we'll be back for a week, and then we're going to do a replay for Sukkot. And then after Sukkot, we'll get back and really start digging into this. Meanwhile, if you can, if you want to follow us, if you want to learn this body system, this is the background, the concepts for it. Okay, so if there's anybody else in the chat room, if you have any questions, I only have about a minute or two. If you have anything that you'd like to say, if not, what can we do? We can go to the Aleph. Go back to the Aleph here, if I can get my internet to go. So the first letter, again, go through the charts. And I put a link there for Hebrew for Christians. There's a little audio video. I'm sorry, it's a video. No, it's an audio. That goes along with the old-fashioned way we used to sing A, B, C, D, E, F, G, right? Well, then you could go in there and learn Aleph-Tav, Aleph Bet, Gimel, Dalet, Hey, and just go through and read it, get the rote memory in your mind, download the charts. Then we will go into the individuals, and like, for instance, this one is the Aleph-Tav, right? So it's in the pictograph language. It's the strong one, the mighty one, the first one. Remember that ox is what plowed that row, that narrow passageway, and then we planted our seeds until we got to the end of that row, or the goal, which was the crop, the harvest, right? So the head is the oxen are moon. When it first comes at the beginning of the year, it comes up like that. And then every month it kind of moves around until we get to the 7th month. And it's like the king is sitting on the throne. You can tell a lot just by the head of the moon. Remember, we're talking ancient times, agricultural lifestyle, right? And it can mean strong, power, leader, ox. And then there's this different sounds. We're going to go into that. And then you can see the progression of how it went from pictograph to middle, or what some people call paleo, to the modern language. So anyway, I hope to see you all next week. And again, we'll be back here Thursday. And I think this replays on Tuesday on Messianic Glam Radio. So thank you very much. And may your garments always be white, and let your head lack no shimon. And we'll see you again next week. Thank you. Blessings and shalom.
We are richly blessed to bring you what we believe is the fullest, most diverse, yet up-to-date progressive teachings, discussion, and prayer programming you can find anywhere on this planet. Be sure to take the tour of the MessianicLambRadio.com website. I'm Susan Hugie, thanking you for joining us on the Messianic Lamb Video Network.